Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of something that I'm gonna use the same thing. That's something that will be subject to a name change. Today I'm joined by Boyan,
Hi.
Jaslyn,
Hi.
and Jacqueline. I'm keeping this one. This is good. Today we'll be talking about unethical experiments in psychology because they're cool, and this is my podcast, and I get to do what I want. So wait, only one of you knows like a decent amount about the Stanford Prison Experiment. Jacqueline
I
said she
remember
watched the movie.
learning it,
You remember learning it? Okay,
I remember learning
but
it
I don't
too.
remember what I learned. I just
Good.
remember learning it.
very good.
I
That's
remember.
the education system for you.
Honestly, I don't think I'd remember it if I didn't watch the movie. I don't know why I watched the movie, but
The
I
movie
remember
came out in
like,
2015. It's got a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. Okay, it's not bad.
I think I just wanted to I just learn better if I'm watching a video of it, so I watched it. But it was.
Do you want a beat so you can rap?
No, it was. It
all
was
the
interesting.
time.
It was interesting.
It was interesting. Perfect,
Yeah.
because the real the real Stanford Prison Experiment was unethical.
Yeah,
It
pretty
was
fucked. It was
very
pretty fucked.
unethical.
Wait,
Okay,
am
I guess
allowed
we
to
can
swear?
Sorry?
I'm allowed to swear, right?
Yeah. I don't care.
So, can I get a recap of what this is?
Oh yeah, don't worry. So yeah, we could talk about that one first. That's good. That's good. That's a good baseline. That's good. It's good. So there was this psychologist who goes by the name of Philip Zimbardo, and what he wanted to do was he wanted to study the effects of different roles that people will assume if they're given like a title. He also wanted to study things like in-group, out-group, authority, dominance, obedience was another big, archetype that he wanted to go through. So what the procedure was, he took 24 Stanford students studying at Stanford, and I forgot how long the experiment was supposed to last, but it only lasted 6 days.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was. I think.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Sorry, social.
Oh,
You like?
Sorry, did I
you
say
think
that
it
again?
was? There we go. You're back.
Oh, I said I think it was supposed to last for 11 days, but my memory's shit, so don't quote me on that.
11 days? I think 11 days is right. I heard 2 weeks a long time ago. I've heard 12 days. I've heard 24 days. So it only ended up lasting 6 days, I believe.
So cray cray.
Yeah.
Oh.
Great.
The
Because the
th-
people turn
That's
cray
really.
cray.
Please cut that out.
no.
So
I
what
regret
happened
it
in this
immediately after I
experiment?
said it. I was like, why did I say that?
It's not like anybody's going to listen to this, so don't worry.
No, it's out there.
We'll listen. We'll listen.
You'll listen. I love you, Jacqueline.
Aw.
Okay.
So what Mr. Zimbardo did was he took 24 students studying at Stanford, and he divided them up. He asked for 24 volunteers, actually, and 12 of them volunteered to be prisoners, and 12 of them volunteered to be guards. And
this is coming back to me.
it's coming back. Good, very good. And so each prisoner was given an identification number, and like their name was like almost stripped away. So they were
the prisoners. Right?
yeah, the prisoners. It was prisoner 3614, prisoner 28. And the guards. I can't remember if the guards were assigned anything, but the guards were guards, and they went on rotations. So this whole experiment took place in the basement of one of the Stanford University like buildings. And so the guards, they went on rotations, they watched cameras, they went on lunch breaks, and they made sure that like they almost tried to simulate a real prison. Like they even had a room dedicated to solitary confinement. So that's pretty fucked up. Because the thing with solitary confinement is you almost lose yourself. That makes sense. There's this whole study on solitary confinement. I can't remember specifically, but what they did was they noticed that lots of people ended up genuinely losing a lot of their sensations, losing their sense of mind, losing basically who they are, because the solitary confinement, like being confined from human touch, from media, from everything, and only being left in a small constricted room where there was a bed and a washroom, right? I think they studied one prisoner who lost control of their what's the thing that holds the urine? Bladder. There we go. In my head, I was like bowels. I'm like, no, that's the other thing. I'm dumb. This intersession period between the winter semester and summer semester has lowered my IQ by like 16 points, which is like one standard deviation at least. So, yeah, solitary confinement's really messed up. He lost control of his bladder, so he always felt like he was peeing, but he wasn't, and so he didn't know what the differences were. So they had one room dedicated to solitary confinement. I guess I could talk about some of the like really messed up things that were going on.
You know what? I just remember, who's the dude who did the experiment?
Philip Zimbardo.
Right. I remember or at least this was in the movie. I don't know if this is I'm pretty sure it was the same. But I remember he when the prisoners started to get seriously affected by the experiment, and they were we want to be out of this thing. He was he thought it was they were just playing the role of it, and he didn't take them seriously, and he really pushed for it to keep going. And I remember that was really fucked, and I think it was only his girlfriend that was yo bro, you're fucked, that he was oh shit, I'm what I'm doing is actually fucked up.
The movie does the experiment justice, so that's right. His girlfriend did tell him. His girlfriend was also a psychologist,
right.
And she was dude, Felipe, this is really fucked up. You can't do this. They're kids, right? Because they're kids. They were people our age, I'm pretty sure, between their ages of 20 to 24, I think.
And he did say if they wanted out, they could, right?
Yeah. So with any.
But then he didn't.
Cause he a butt face.
Cause then he kind of I think it was Jocelyn. I think in the movie, I remember them saying he ended up just being so much invested into the experiment that he also became part of it, in a sense, as the person that's in charge of the prison and the prisoners, right?
Oh,
the warden. He was the warden.
So he ended up playing that role, and he just got too into it, just like the prison guards did.
So he fell for his own experiment. He fell for the
bamboozled himself.
yeah, basically. Very, very good way of comparing the two.
Yeah, so you're 100%. I have nothing to add to that. The prisoners did want out, and he tried his best to convince them to keep going, even though they had every right to leave. And he told them right before the experiment, you could leave whenever you want. Let me see. Oh, I remember on one of the last days, there was a prisoner who was like feeling extremely ill, and they were suffering from acute depression because of like the traumatic experiences that they were going through. So you know, Philip Zimbardo takes him to a different room outside of the prison and gets him some food and water, and then the guards get the rest of the prisoners in line to make a chant, and the chant was like, I forgot the prisoner's number, but it was like, prisoner 3614 is a bad prisoner, prisoner 3, and they started chanting this outside of the room that the like the student that was taken out was being held in. And then once Philip like, because Philip left the room to go find him a doctor because the student was like over his bed, and like had been having stomach pains and had been like suffering from physical symptoms, in addition to the mental symptoms that they've been feeling. As soon as he heard the chanting, he ran back to the room that the kid was in, and the kid was like on the ground crying on his side. I think he was on the ground, but I'm 100% sure he was crying and like a broken student.
I remember, this was devastating to watch.
And so Philip, instead of leaving him in the room, he said, okay, we're gonna leave here. The prisoner, the student, was like, no, I have to go back. Like, he assumed the role of prisoner. Like,
oh shit.
He said, no, I have to go back. I have to stay here. And so Philip, cut the shit. He was like, okay, no, your name is this. They didn't say the kid's name in any website, obviously. And he's like, my name is Philip. I'm a psychologist, and this is an experiment. We're getting you out of here. And then the kid stopped crying immediately and said, okay, let's go. And that was on the 6th day, and the experiment was halted, obviously. Like, aside from the fact that the guards, put one of the kids in solitary confinement for 36 hours, in a dark room, cold room, with no bed, no sheets, nothing in that room, and they just had to lay on the cold ground and sleep. This experiment kind of shows how, one person can change just because they were given some sort of identification. There was another, those social experiments where they just kind of go around in public and do random stuff?
Oh, yeah.
There was this one social experiment where a guy walked up to a stranger and gave him a blue flag, and then he left. And the guy with a blue flag didn't know what he was doing because it was just some random guy. A guy with a green flag came up to him and said, "Hey," and then the green flag guy left. He was just holding a random green flag, the same shape but different color as the guy with the blue flag. The stranger that held the blue flag straight up said, "Fuck that guy."
Okay.
That's random.
It's really random, right? It shows it could show how fast people like assume roles and show positive and negative discrimination to in-group and out-group. Actually, I talked about that in another podcast. You guys should check that out. Yeah. Okay, so it's been a long time coming since I've needed to edit this and everything. I'm getting there. I've taken courses in the summer and just have a job as well during the COVID crisis. It's wonderful. But I realized that a lot of the information, not a lot, but an amount of the information that I'm saying in the podcast is not correct, and I think that's mostly because I remember it, and it's just like a false memory, or some other cryptalization, or I can't remember if that's the right word, but yeah, well, obvious example, post meta Alex, fourth wall breaking Alex, even though this is a podcast. Anyways, just wanted to say that some of the information is false, and to whoever watches this, if it is wrong and you find something like that, feel free to say whatever you want. I just wanted to correct this for accuracy reasons. The person with the blue flag and green flag, it was actually in a comic. I can't remember the artist of the comic right now. I'll probably put a thing, just like his name or her name or its name, whatever the identification is. And so they created that, but I don't think there was any kind of contextual reason that they created it or anything that prompted them to create it. It was just like the person's a type of satirical comic individual, and so that I think that's also interesting about the comic is that like they demonstrate in-group out-group ideology and this kind of how fast people adopt in-group out-group habits even within a comic. And yeah, so I just wanted to interject in my own interjections, 16th wall interjections. So yeah, hopefully this thing is more fluid than this interjection. Thank you. That's bad for my throat. Okay. The second unethical experiment that I wanted to talk about, or at least one of them, was the Learned Helplessness unethical experiment. If you guys know what learned helplessness is.
That also sounds
Does
very
it sound familiar? Very good.
Sounds very familiar.
So this is one where this psychologist by the name of I've never read this guy's name. I just know of the experiment. Seligman. And what he did was he took the same group of dogs into 3 different scenarios. The first scenario was he put them in a box, and in this box there were 2 different floors and a wall that broke those 2 floors. On one floor, when a red light flashed, it shocked that ground. Like it produced an electric current through the floor. The other side was safe, and there was just a small wall in between that the dog could jump over. This is the first one. So when the red light went, it shocked the ground. The dog was startled. It shocked again. The dog jumped to the other side because they had the ability to do so. And once the red light went off, it didn't shock that ground. So the dog learned, okay, this side is the safe side, that side's the bad side. Same dog, second scenario. The wall is now blocked off. The red light goes off, it shocks the ground. The dog doesn't know what to do because they learned that side's the safe side, but they're on the dangerous side, and they can't move. Red light goes off again, it shocks the ground, and the experimenter, the psychologist, continues to do this. That's an interesting camera. For a really long time, or longer than he should have.
To the dog?
Yeah, to the dog.
The same dog?
The same group of dogs. Like it was like 1 dog per like cage or per experiment. So it was to the same dog. He kept shocking the dog. In the third scenario, it's very similar to the first one. So he takes out the wall and he puts up the small wall that the dog can jump over. But now, when the red light flashes, the dog doesn't move. The red light flashed again, dog didn't move. Even though they can jump to safety, they didn't move. What does this show? It shows that the dog has now learned how to be depressed.
Learned how to be
It's learned helplessness because it assumes that there's no like escaping. It's biologically conditioned now to assume that when a red light goes off, there's nothing that can stop the shock.
Oh, that's
So what do you-
sad.
That's sad. I think that's fucked up. What the heck?
Well, yeah, it's also
I
very.
mean,
It's sad. That's fucking,
So what do you guys think? How would that experiment fare today? And if you guys wanted to test like helplessness, how would you do it?
Bro,
oh,
that's fucked. No matter what, if we fuck now.
Yeah.
How do you
That was
test
such a
helplessness without
Yeah.
breaking ethical grounds, you know? Like do you starve somebody?
also, I don't think it's fair to like test human helplessness on a dog.
That's true. Yeah.
Like
That's
I guess
that's
when,
true.
like,
they have
guess
different
that
like
was, like-
brains and like different natural instincts.
So how would you
I feel
test
like-
human helplessness then, instead of helplessness as a whole?
Well, what is human helplessness?
What is human helplessness? What do you think I think human helplessness is when you have the inability to do something.
Out of choice or out of...
Like you have the inability to do something not out of choice. Like you can't do something as opposed to not wanting to do something.
So then what are you testing?
You're testing whether or not someone can learn that they only have the inability to do something. So like the dogs in the first example can jump over the wall, right? But then in the third example, they've lost that ability to think that there's freedom. Like there's one theory of depression called helplessness theory, which tries to argue the way a person thinks about failure makes him or her more or less likely to be depressed. This helplessness theory of depression, and it extends to different things. So it's like it attributes your own failures to internal characteristics instead of external. So that would be like if you rear end somebody, but you know it's not, but it's definitely not your fault, then you assume it's your fault. If that makes sense. Helplessness theory also argues that people who are more depressed will think failures are stable instead of changeable or mutable. So I'll always be a failure. And they also try to argue that they think failures are global instead of local. So it's like I'm a failure at everything instead of, oh, you know what? I'll ask out that boy another day or a different boy. So how would you think it'd be an ethical way to test someone believing they have the inability to do something?
Yo, bro, it doesn't sound like there is an ethical way.
Why not? Why not? What if... Do you think starving someone is 100% unethical? So if I, take away your lunch for an hour longer than when you normally eat lunch at, and then I give it to you, is that unethical? I'm starving you for an hour, but I'm still giving you your food.
Starving you.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider that starving you.
I wouldn't consider that. Would you consider that okay, like you're delaying my lunch hour you're delaying my lunchtime for an hour? I wouldn't call that I'm learning to be helpless. I would call that you conditioned me to eat at a different time.
Okay. So what if I condition you to eat 2 meals a day instead of 3 meals though? Is that considered starving you?
No.
Or do you think you'll end up eventually changing your diet so that you eat 2 big meals instead of 3 medium meals?
But I think sorry.
No,
I
you
think
go.
the thought of learned helplessness, that's just a negative thing in the fact. So I would have to be suffering in some way.
Yeah, I wouldn't say limiting 3 to 2 is making you helpless in any way.
I wouldn't, because if it's a positive result, I wouldn't call it I learned to be helpless. I learned helplessness. I would just be modified my lifestyle for the better.
Okay.
So I don't think there's a positive way to go about.
You need to say that all again.
I don't think there's an ethical way. I don't think there's an ethical way
to test helplessness because you have to suffer.
Yeah.
What about positive suffering? So instead of it being bad, it's instead really, really good. So You
But
test.
how do you positively suffer?
What? Can you give me an example?
I
What's
feel like
I'm
that's
thinking,
a
I'm
contradicting statement.
No,
I
no, no, no,
really
no.
don't
It's
think
Is
it's
that a
not.
thing, or is
It,
that something you just thought of?
it's yeah. It's not an oxymoron. Just hear me out, okay? So, helplessness, right? It's the inability to do something. All right, I'm gonna work off of that. So, let's say let's say I make you breakfast and lunch every day, okay?
That'd be so nice.
Now, I'm doing this every day. I do it every day for a year. So you're just normally used to, me being your butler at this point, okay? I'm Alfred Pennyworth in this bitch. Laugh. So what if, like, on the next year, I stop. So I don't make you breakfast that morning. But you're assuming that I'll make you breakfast. And let's assume here that you don't know how to, like, you're cooking illiterate, okay? You don't know how to make, you can't even make cereal, okay?
Oh, wow.
I know, sad life. So do you think that I've now taught you to be helpless?
That's not
Don't you
teaching
dare
to be
say
helpless.
Uber Eats. I'm gonna start yelling.
No, but that's not teaching you to be helpless because you were helpless to begin with.
Oh man.
I mean, you conditioned me to rely on you, but like,
That's not even like
I think it's
conditioning me to rely on you because I couldn't rely on myself to begin with.
like, yeah, like a parent spoiling a child.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to go with.
Okay, a parent would make more sense than like a partner in that situation.
I was just okay.
I mean, actually, if you think about it in the terms of like partner, I mean, I guess you do feel helpless after you have a breakup. So I guess that's learned helplessness in a way.
I stopped making food for you. We've broken up. Whoops. Oopsie.
Like, oh no, I'm helpless now. I have no idea.
But like it's like what I said before. It's like you didn't learn it. You were helpless to begin with.
Ouch.
Like you were helpless before you got together, and then he or she helped you, and then left. So now you're just back to your original state.
Damn, this is harder than I thought.
What if you like weren't helpless before and you just forgot?
And then you became helpless. So what if
Honestly,
Jacqueline was like a master chef, and then because I kept cooking for her, she ended up unlearning how to cook, and so she became helpless.
Unlearned.
Okay, at that point, this is a different issue.
You know, I think honestly, the only way you can like
The only way you can like I don't know what.
the only way you can like no, the only way to learn more about like learned helplessness is if like a kidnapper happened and you studied the cases of that. So it wouldn't be an experiment. It was like a case of, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's the only way, like, because we can't do experiments unless they're ethical, right? So I feel like for a lot of things now you'll just have to learn about, like, you'll just have to study cases of things that happened unfortunately to people who like,
yeah, there's
suffered.
that
Do you know what I'm saying?
I feel like you're.
Wasn't there that girl
Go
who
on.
was kidnapped and like?
Oh, and raised by wolves? That one?
No. The one who was
Oksana?
kidnapped when she was like very young and like I don't know. I remember like they found her and they did like a bunch of studies on her and she was
The
like
one
very
who was
like
raised by
But do you know what I'm
wolves.
saying?
she wasn't raised
Like,
by
I'm
wolves.
thinking
Someone
about-
like kidnapped
raised
her.
by wolves.
Jeannie, like the child that was isolated and like
Maybe that one. Yeah, that one. I
where
think.
they found her when she was 13, but she couldn't learn languages because the left side of her brain had atrophied, and left side is where language is kept. So instead, she can only make sentences, but she couldn't acquire a language as opposed to learning
sure.
different. Okay.
I don't
Yes.
remember.
Just whatever. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that.
Jacqueline, I think you were going on like Stockholm syndrome. Do you know what
I
Stockholm?
was, because I was like that. That's what, like, when you were talking about learned helplessness, that's kind of what it reminded me of. Because like I just feel like if someone was kidnapped and then afterwards they like couldn't leave, that's like a learned helplessness. Like that was kind of what I felt like it was. That's why I kept, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think there is a real way to learn helplessness, that to test learned helplessness, because you can't really test that without
Ethically.
being unethical.
Yeah.
Well, you could test it. I mean, like, study it the way Jacqueline talked about, where like you find people who already been
Like
through
suffered,
whatever.
went through shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think
But I
that's
mean-
like the only way.
I feel like that's still pretty unethical, because you're playing on people's
unethical?
feelings. I mean,
I don't know. I feel like if I was
you're-
the person, I'd be like, good, you're doing something for the world.
people
well,
with
that's one way
PTSD
to
might
put it.
disagree with you. I don't know.
I don't know.
People with PTSD could be crazy. Anyways,
So,
this next experiment talks a lot about mother attachment. Actually, it's called the Harry Harlow Rhesus Monkey Experiment. Do you guys remember that?
This also sounds familiar.
yeah, I know this.
Rhesus Monkey Experiment.
Wait. Was it the cloth mother and then the feeding mother? I'm so good
You
at
keep
this.
spoiling them,
Oh my
Jacqueline.
gosh.
I
They
don't.
should just
I
go back to
remember
Mr.
these
Takata
words.
and just be like, hey, I still remember this.
Oh,
I remember
Takata
the
was
words,
actually
and that's it.
Oh, I gotta get Takata on this podcast.
Oh my
That'd be
god, yes.
interesting.
Reunion.
Would you guys be on that podcast if I got Takata on it?
Oh, I'd flex.
That's
I'd
a little
really flex all my
intimidating.
knowledge. I'd pull out all my grade 12 notes.
Okay, so the Rhesus Monkey Experiment was an experiment to see whether or not developing children are more inclined to like being taken care of a provider, like someone who provides food or some sort of nurturing, or something that looks, not really looks, but something that's more mother-like. So they're
Warmth provides warmth.
yeah, provides warmth. That was the thing. They put a heater in the second monkey.
Oh, this one.
The
remember
heater
this
is what
one
made
too.
you remember? What the fuck?
No, it's like the heater and then the thing with the monkey and then like the mom. I put them
Oh,
together.
boy. Yeah.
It's the heater. It's the heater.
It was the heater.
It was the
Heater,
heater.
yeah. Because I remember, like in school, I was like a heater. But yeah. Anyways, it
You
makes
had a
sense.
space heater in school. It's good information to know. Okay,
Yeah.
so sorry?
Sorry, go.
Do you want to say something?
No. I was like, sorry. You continue.
Oh.
Go.
So in this experiment, what they did was they took a baby rhesus monkey away from their mother, and they put this baby monkey in a room with two other monkeys. One monkey had a bottle of like baby food, I guess, and the other monkey was like, it had fur on it and it looked like its mother. The fur monkey had a heater in it and provided warmth, like Jacqueline said, and the wire monkey, just, it looked like it outlined a monkey except for like some features. Like I think it didn't have a like ears, or it didn't have a nose, or it was just like a basic outline of what a monkey was with a feeding bottle. What the experimenter found was that at some point the baby stopped going to the wire monkey when they started missing their mother, and only like sat in the like fur monkey's lap, and even went on as far as to starve themselves just to be with their hypothetical mother. This experiment went pretty far because like we didn't talk about it at school, but like at some point they threw the monkey across the room just to see which
They They
Which-
talked about this. I
Oh,
remember
they
this.
did? Oh, okay. Which monkey, which fake monkey the baby one would go to? And they would
Yo,
even
that's
get
harsh.
they would even get the fur monkey to throw the baby across the room
No!
just to see if it would still come back to the fur monkey, and
Oh, I
like
remember this.
every time it would go back to the monkey that better represented its mother. Speaking of attachment, like we just spoke of, when the baby monkey and the mother monkey were reunited, they showed a very, very, very strong insecure, avoidant attachment type. So the mother neglected their child, was extremely aggressive with their child, because it was like a different person to the monkey now, or a different monkey to the monkey now. The mother didn't think that it was the same child, if that's a good way to explain it. So it's like somebody else's child, so you're not as caring with that child. Well, I mean, not humans, but maybe you're not as caring with other people's children. I don't. Do you guys have children of your own? I mean, I'd hope not, but
Unfortunately.
whoa, whoa. Boy.
Awkward silence.
No. I mean, you guys weren't watching my webcam, so you guys didn't know.
I saw it.
Thanks, Boyan.
My thing froze.
Damn. So, if you guys were to study attachment in this case and to see which monkey or which mother of, like, if you put a human baby inside of a cage, I mean, don't, but if you did, how would you try and make this an ethical experiment? How would you try and show that babies are more inclined to go to the mother that provides warmth and it looks nurturing, as opposed to one that provides like essentials, or like different essentials, like as opposed to heat, it provides food. I mean, food is also considered heat because it's like energy, but that's whatever. What do you guys think?
That's hard.
Yo, bro, I don't think any of this shit. How the fuck are you gonna turn an unethical shit ethical?
Yeah, what's you like introduce?
And also, like,
But it's just
yo, man, these bitches like took this monkey away from the mother. That's already unethical.
true. Yeah, the first step is already wrong.
Yeah, so like, how are you gonna? Okay, side note though, I made a pretty flower.
Oh, nice.
It's beautiful.
Thank
For
you.
Mother's
Okay,
Day?
What's ethical
know,
about the
I'm-
flower?
I'm figuring it out now. It's made out of old paper because I'm cleaning my room right now, so I'm using all my recycled paper.
But you still
Nice.
had to kill trees to get that paper.
No, you know
Switch
why?
to
'Cause
technology.
My teachers printed these out for me.
Still,
You should
we have
reprimand your
resources.
teachers. You're still doing a wrong.
Correct. Okay. Monkeys.
I don't think you can do this ethically because you'd just be like playing with the baby's feelings and environment. And it's just
Okay,
that's just not okay.
Any type of experiment where you're trying to test a negative attribute will be unethical in some form. There's like no
'Cause you
getting
have
around
to-
it.
Yeah, because you have to like evoke those negative emotions, and that shit's gonna stick, and this person's gonna end up fucked, or this monkey's gonna end up fucked. You know?
Exactly.
Okay, I have an
What we
idea.
thought about in the Learned Helplessness.
I have an idea. Okay, so what if they, okay, just hear me out. This is a really far out there idea. Okay, they milk the mother. Okay, so they have
Milk the mother.
so they have whatever food that the mother provides for the child
Wait.
whenever the child.
You milk a monkey?
I don't know.
I mean, they have like those like breast milk things for like humans too. It's like
I'm
a
sure
milk
I'm sure
pump.
you
But
can
that's
figure out a
because-
way.
You can milk a mother.
Milk.
I guess.
Yeah, breast milk. Why are we on this topic now?
Okay. Let's assume that they can, okay? And they get the mother's milk or whatever she provides to her child in some sort of nutritious way. Okay? And they put that on a contraption like in a box, okay? And like it's like the feeding tube or the mouthpiece is on the outside of the box. The second box that's just like that's right next to it has 2 hand holes for the mother to interact with the child. Okay? And then you put these 2 boxes, so basically you're putting the mother in a box and her milk in the other box.
Pretty unethical.
Already sounding.
No, but Alex, of course the monkey's gonna go to the mother.
Yeah, but the mother can't
mother.
feed the child, right? So would the child still starve themselves because the mother can't feed their child and like stay not being fed even though the food is right to the left and then they could go back to the mother? Or would they do the logical thing even though baby monkeys don't?
Now it sounds like the baby. Never mind. I'm confused.
Wait, so
Is that ethical?
Experiment, did the monkey not go back and forth?
I think the monkey went back and forth at first, but then ended up starving itself when it when it missed its mother too much, or when its attachment to its mother became more stronger.
Wait, what was the question?
Okay.
So I
was gonna ask the same thing. I was listening to you.
Okay.
I noted that before.
In
after
the original,
experiment, I forgot the question.
Wait. In the original experiment, the baby clings on to the closest representation of the mother.
Yeah, the fur mother.
It's because in both situations it's denied something, whereas in your situation it's not.
Yeah, it's hard to think of something unethical. I was trying really hard for that one. Okay.
But now you have to feel bad for the mother because she's in a box, as you said. You put the mother in a box. You know what you need? You need
Jesus? Is that what I need? Do I need Jesus?
You do need Jesus. Jesus, take the wheel. But if the monkey's mother gave if the mother monkey gave birth to the baby monkey, and then the mother monkey passed away due to pregnancy problems, then you wouldn't have to deal with putting the mother in an unethical situation, and then you would just have to place this. I mean, hold on. Then you would have a baby.
But the baby's
still in an unethical situation.
No. It's not even that. It's like the baby develops an attachment to their mother, right? So the baby learns that, oh, this is my mom. This is, this person takes care of me. And then the mother is taken away, and then the baby's put into the 2 wire monkey situation.
Yeah.
Why can't you give it you can make it get attached to something else before its mother? You know that thing where it's they're when whatever the baby first sets its eyes on. What is that one?
You mean imprinting?
Thank you.
So you get the baby to attach itself to something that it
taking away any type of attachment is technically unethical.
No, I don't think so. What if it gets attached to a stuffed bear? What if it's a stuffed bear?
What if his whole
do that when it
his whole well-being relies on this stuffed bear? If you take away the stuffed bear,
and then you take away the stuffed bear, and then you put a wire bear with food and then a fur bear with food inside the cage. Because once the monkey comes back to the stuffed bear, it'll almost be like the fur bear. Like the fur bear without food, but then this time the baby gets provided food because it's being taken care of by the fur bear. and
You know what,
experimenters.
Alex?
What?
Unethical experiments just can't be fixed. They're unethical, and we learned a shit ton from them, but they're fucked.
Okay.
No, I want to deny that.
I genuinely think so, especially if you're talking about trying to figure out, like, trying to learn about something negative or trying to evoke negative things.
All right. You want an unethical experiment that deals with conformity? That's really unethical. All right, I got you. Milgram's Shock Experiment.
Oh, that's what I was thinking about.
I remember that
No,
one
I
too.
was gonna bring that.
No,
Boy,
that
do you
one-
want to start yelling too then?
That one is upsetting.
I don't know. I don't remember these.
Perfect. Okay.
I remember the
Why-
words, and I don't
why
remember
was it
what they
shocked,
were.
you know?
No, I was thinking about this when you talked about the stick thing.
Milgram's Shock Experiment. What they did was they took a paid actor. So I'm gonna say paid actor at
Is it
first.
really
There was an actor
It is
behind a wall that was hooked up to a shocker. There was a volunteer who was supposed to ask this actor questions, and if they got questions wrong, they would shock them and then turn up the voltage. Same amp, so
Oh,
it'd hurt
question
more
wrong?
if they got the questions wrong.
I thought
But
it
why
was
would they shock them if they got the question right?
no, it's wrong.
I think it's
Yeah, if they got
it's
the
for
question
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah, if
they
they got.
shocked them.
Did I say right?
Yeah, they shocked them.
Yeah.
I said right? I thought I said wrong. Okay, well, yeah, they shocked them when they got the question wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say right? Oh man,
I don't know.
I'm
I
dumb.
didn't hear that.
I didn't hear right. Then why
Okay.
did you say something,
Just
Jasmine?
Can we move
No, I
on?
said
Okay,
sorry.
so the volunteer was told to shock the like actor whenever they got a question wrong. So they would ask them stuff.
Oh!
It's the actor that got shocked. That's the thing. It clicked. The thing is, it didn't deal as much with conformity as it did with obedience, because behind the volunteer was an authoritative figure, and then this authoritative figure was either the experimenter or someone that looked like part of the experiment. It was also generally an actor as well. And Milgram also did the thing that Philip Zimbardo did, where it was, oh yeah, you can leave whenever you want if you feel uncomfortable or something. But then the paid actor that was supposed to be the authoritative figure would say, oh, please finish the experiment till the end, or please continue shocking until the end, even when people were in so much distress, saying like, no, I'm not gonna shock this person anymore. This person has a life, maybe. So the hurting went all the way up to 450 volts at some amps, I can't remember. But the other thing was that the actor that was getting shocked would like scream in pain and convince the volunteer that they were genuinely getting hurt. So to fix this, Milgram was like, okay, so I think it wasn't only Milgram that changed the experiment as well, but they also tested this same like experiment in different ways. So sometimes they would have like the experimenter call the volunteer on the phone, and that would lower the the amount of obedience. I think the obedience rate was something like 75%. Like 75% of people continued all the way to the end. So 75% of the time, people will conform to something if an authoritative figure is telling them to do so. That's basically what that experiment was testing. It went down when the experimenter was either not in the room or talking to them through a phone, or when the authoritative figure looked less authoritative. So instead of wearing a lab coat, they probably wear like khakis and a flannel. And I was like, please continue to the experiment. It's like, no, Billy Joel, I won't. Like, leave.
Sure.
Another thing was that if the experiment was conducted outside of what looked like an experimenter's lab, so if it was like I think they also tested this in like an abandoned building, that decreased the conformity by a lot too. So now, The unethical part was that these people, even if they left early or if they continued all the way to the end, most of the time they felt deep stress and were left, I think some of them were left with like post-traumatic stress disorder by being told to continue hurting this person all the way till they couldn't take it anymore. Because I think there were recordings of this where the actor that was getting shocked would say things like, please stop shocking me, please stop, like calling for their life. You know, humans are naturally ultra social, right? We're like bees and ants. We have a society and cities and communities, and so it's, you know, natural that we don't hurt people. Aggression is learned. So like leaving people with these conditions, these mental symptoms, was the unethical part. So now I ask you, this is an actual unethical conformity experiment. How would you make this ethical then? If you want to butcher the way I change experiments and reprimand me for thinking outside the box.
I mean,
I
honestly,
just don't think it's possible.
I beg to differ.
I mean, for obedience, I mean, it could just be like,
Oh, I got it.
maybe not something as severe as shocking, you know what I'm saying? Like,
But I think you need the severity in order to test the obedience.
I got it. Okay. What if they put the like actor in the same room as the person, right?
what would that do?
I'll start with that.
What?
Because the person is there. You can see them in pain as opposed to hearing them behind a wall in pain.
I
Oh, they're
don't-
behind
What
a
would that do?
wall?
How would that
They're
make
behind the
things
wall.
I thought
more
it was like
Why would that make
glass
it different?
Because you can
How
see
would
the
that-
person's face. You could see them like crying in pain. You could see them.
Yeah, I would
You could
think
see
that
them
would be
being
different.
hurt.
Bro, I think that would give them, that's more unethical because that, like, that's a visual effect. Like, if that happened
But
to
you're
me,
more
like,
likely to stop because because instead of like not believing that this person's actually hurt or like having an experiment, like now like there's
more
evidence that
likely
you're
to
doing
stop, but
wrong.
you'd still do it to some extent, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the experiment had like people like were obedient and they did it until they hit a shock level that almost like killed these people, that would have killed these people if that shock was real. But if you see that shit happen, you'd still shock them because there's a person next to you telling you to, but you'd stop at a considerable amount of time. But you'd still get fucked, and you'd still think about that, probably. Be like, I like literally tortured this poor like soul, and it was an experiment, and now I'm fucked for life. Like, if someone actually told me to do that shit, would I actually do that shit? Like, I'd be haunted by that for the rest of my life.
I have a new way. Okay, so instead of shocks, okay, the person is next to you. Let's say the actor is okay with with actually getting like a little bit of hurting, okay? So
You were saying really shock this man?
no. Instead, you take like a flimsy piece of like a flimsy stick or like a flimsy piece of wood, and the person that is being told like by the authoritative figure to reprimand the actor is told to hit them with the stick.
Wait, say that again.
So you know how
I
it's like
that.
so you know how it's normally like shocking, and so they'll shock behind a wall so they don't see the person. There's no like real way to tell like, oh, this person's being shocked, or you know, it's like you can't see their face. So instead they're in front of you, and instead of being shocked, you hit them with a stick like on the hand or something.
But then you're doing the abusing yourself.
Yeah, but you're not likely to get to a point where you hit them hard enough. Like you stop.
I mean, what if this guy's was it masochist, a sadist? What like the
Sadist.
the one that they like watching people in pain? Yo, did that
That's a
man
sadist.
This is for normal people, not sadism.
Oh.
Like everybody that was
Man discovers his kink mid-experiment. Nah, you're fucked.
Is happening.
Okay, wait. But by changing the experiment, you're changing what you're testing.
I'm still testing for like obedience, but instead I'm giving
What's a different level of obedience? Like a different
I'm
type
trying to
of
make this
obedience.
ethical. I looked really angry.
It's hard. I don't know if you can, to a certain degree, make it ethical.
Yeah, I think they're just destined to be non-ethical and for us to have a learning experience for things. Look, if you think about it like this, if all unethical experiments were actually ethical... Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. But if we never discovered unethical as a thing, we'd still be doing these fucked things.
Okay, what if there's no physical pain? Okay. Now, the volunteer is told to reprimand the actor by insulting them.
Roasting them?
Yeah, it's just like it's like you're wrong, like you're dumb, or like,
But
like
then wouldn't that just turn into something funny? You know, like
I don't think they think
start
it's
laughing.
funny. It's like, what if the person like starts crying? Okay, actually, no, not.
what if you just
Crying is
start making
bad.
jokes? I would just start cracking up jokes, be like, you know, I wouldn't
Jasmine,
really
you do
take it
such a
seriously.
bad
though. No, but I wouldn't take the experiment as seriously because there's no real consequence, I guess. Or it's like because of the whole thing where you insult them. I wouldn't insult
I
anyone.
mean,
I'm just like,
Yeah, what if you're actually insulting and then this actor is paid to cry? Wouldn't you feel horrible?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they're paid to, take the insult as opposed to laugh at the insult. Like I don't fucking care.
oh,
So like,
Now you're measuring people's obedience towards emotional pain over physical pain, which is another experiment.
yeah, but I feel like emotional pain is somewhat, you can somewhat abuse it. I mean, I get abused emotionally all the time. Nobody cares.
oh my gosh.
Ah, man, this.
I don't know what to tell you, Alex.
I'm trying really hard, man. I'm trying. Okay. Okay. There's no hurting whatsoever. Now, oh man, this is so weird. Okay, now you have to give every time they get a question wrong, you have to give them a piece, like a piece of candy. Okay, no, hear me out. Hear me out.
It's like a reward.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
What if it's like this man?
But the candy keeps getting bigger, and you tell them that they have to eat it because they got the question wrong.
No, bro. What if it's like this dude, the actor, like brought all of his. Let's just say it's fake money, but the participant doesn't know. This volunteer doesn't know that, and so the dude has like I don't know, like $10,000 in front of him, or it's like it's very important for his life. They make it super extreme, and then every single question they get wrong, the volunteer has to shred the money, but it's like fake or whatever.
I mean, you're not really testing like obedience though, because they'll just continue. There's nothing that's affecting them to make them stop. You know, I was saying to give the actor food and telling them that they had to finish the food because it was some way of getting the volunteer to reprimand.
Like batten the person up.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than hitting them or shocking them.
Well, the food thing is like delayed, whereas a shock is immediate,
I'm trying.
which I really think would make a difference.
What about they spray with water?
Are you gonna elaborate?
It's like
So they will. So every time they get the question wrong, they get one spray of water, and then following questions they spray them more with water. The way that
Where's the obedience in this?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. What if the actor is like necessitates not being rinsed with water? So like, what if they're like, the groom or the bride of a wedding, and so they can't get their clothing wet.
What?
It was the first thing that came to my mind. Okay.
No. Okay, but for the original test, the obedience works because you're like testing in almost a life or death situation.
Yeah, you're seeing how far they go because it'll like it pressures the person to go against their normal
Soaking someone
tendency.
will ruin someone's day, but it's not gonna kill them.
But you're ruining their wedding. How far do you want to go
it's
to
not the
ruin
same
their
thing.
wedding?
Experiment on their
It's
wedding.
not the same thing.
It's not, but it's ethical.
Also, if I was in like an experiment and someone was like, they're going to their wedding in like an hour, and every time you do this, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna be like, there's no fucking way they're actually going to a wedding in an hour.
Yeah, that's true. It wouldn't work because it's like, why would they do this before their wedding? Like, then you're questioning like, how important does this guy think his wedding is? So like, I
Oh
don't give a
fuck.
fuck
Yeah,
what
that's
it
I
is.
didn't get that far in my thought process. This is really hard, okay? Like,
I think we just outsmarted Alex.
no.
I'll take a win, thanks.
No. This is not a win for you. This is a. What about what if so let's say that this is gonna be another weird one. The actor has a bunch of their belongings, okay, but like fake belongings, in the room, okay? And you, as the volunteer, every time the actor gets a question wrong, you have to destroy one of their belongings.
Oh, that's almost therapeutic.
What? If
To
somebody
destroy someone
destroyed my
else's
computer,
belongings?
I'd be horrified. What?
Okay, well, I think that works. I mean-
Sponsored by Pepsi.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm making noise, but my AirPods died, so I need to...
That's okay. AirPods, she's richer than us.
True.
I mean, I can afford AirPods, but I don't have I have a Samsung, which makes me better.
You
I'm
can
sorry,
still
if I-
use AirPods with Samsung.
Yeah, but I'm not about that. I'm not about that
Life.
I was gonna think of something smart or funny, but I'm neither. So, moving on. Okay, there's no way. So these unethical experiments are really hard to. So they're really good to learn from because they've already been conducted, but there's no real way to recreate them and test the same things now, right? So we'll have to find different ways to test similar theories. Like conformity.
People are trying to do.
Conformity. I don't know how you could test obedience, like unless you were to go to like some really weird places in Toronto and see if anybody's down to be like your dominatrix or something.
Oh, yeah.
What if it's like your job or something? Like your boss is forcing you to do something. You have to obey them. I don't know.
I mean,
Like that.
I mean,
in
then
that
would
case, you
agree
have
because you
to,
can pay for that.
right? Because it's your job.
That's true.
Unless they tell you to do something that you don't want to do, like a bunch. Yeah,
Yes, Jacqueline.
like
That is
burying a
the
dead
first thing
body.
that came to my mind.
Jacqueline,
Well,
do you have
then
something
that's
to
another
explain?
ethical issue.
Yeah, right. Like how because you can't really tell someone to do something ethical and then they won't do it. Because like it's like a bunch of media and stuff do the same thing where it's like
I guess science will just have to progress slower.
sorry.
I guess science will just have to progress slower in an ethical sense.
No. I refuse. I will. I feel defeated. None of my ideas held.
Oh,
None
no.
of my ideas help.
I don't know if that was the goal.
I mean, ethical experiments are hard. So you tried. You tried.
I was trying to convert unethical experiments to ethical ones, but it just kind of shows you like how messed up people allowed, like how messed up things could actually get before somebody said something. Like, you know, Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
He he was on cocaine a lot of the time.
Of course he was.
And
Oh, me too.
one of the things that he did was what? One of the things that he did was he had a patient, because he was a psychologist. He had a patient who he also put on cocaine, and then he did experiments on her. And people were like, "Oh yeah, it's whatever. It's cocaine. It's nothing. It's you know, it helps me reduce the pain in my hip." It's like, "Oh, okay. Well, there's a bunch of side effects though." Nah, those are irrelevant. Yeah, that's basically.
I didn't know he did that. That's
Yeah,
messed
not a
up.
lot of people know about a lot of what Sigmund Freud did because he's so.
His theories are whack, but
His theories are interesting.
yeah. I only
Psychosexual.
remember him because of his theory about like parents and their kids and
The
how
Oedipus
girls
complex.
What? I don't know what it's
Oedipus
called. It's like the girls want to marry their dad. Yeah, the sexual one.
Oedipus
The girls want to marry
complex.
their dads. The sons want to marry their moms. I remember that one. I'm just like, what a interesting thought. Like, you just came up with that. Like, hey, what if we were all interested in our parents? Like, who thinks of stuff like that?
Ooh.
Apparently him.
What if it was the other way around? What if the parents were interested in their children? Have you ever heard of a Jocasta complex?
Ew. Sounds
You've
fake.
never heard of a Jocasta complex? Okay.
That's like
How
some.
could you ever be interested in your child?
Yeah, like.
Have you ever heard
Their
of?
parents like that.
Have you ever heard of really horny milfs in your area?
No, like
What are you even? I don't even.
It's like one of those like
it's too
ads and
innocent.
stuff.
but like it's not your own child. You know, if it's your own child.
There's a lot of
There's
Like
you'd be
bodies alive or
surprised.
Something.
who have been sexually abused by their own parents.
Like
Cool.
Oedipus
That's
Oedipus
weird.
complex is because it was the son. Do you guys know the story of Oedipus? Okay, it doesn't matter. The son like married his mom. His mom's name was Jocasta, or maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong. So that's why it's called the Jocasta complex, when the mother is in love with the child,
Her own
which
child?
happens.
But why? Like, you literally gave birth to this person.
Incest, wincest.
Oh my god. Don't ever say that ever again to anybody.
Disgusting. Oh man, I'm horrified with
Why is
myself.
that a phrase? I
Why?
don't know.
Because it rhymes.
Oh my god. So many TV shows I watched has that storyline where it's like either they're the
What the fuck do you
stepbrother-
watch, Jaslyn?
like-
What the?
No, it's like I don't know. Wait, no. Yeah, it's like
Jesus
one
Christ.
of the storylines in How to Get Away with Murder. And then I was like, what? And then they produce. Well, it's like brother and sister, not parents. But like, still, it's messed up. Just like
Oh,
why
man.
is there so many of this storyline in the TV shows I watch? Like, get out of here. Not what I want to watch.
I think I've talked about a lot of really popular unethical experiments. I think you guys have had your fair share of psychological experiments for today. I don't know. Do you guys have any closing remarks or something you guys want to say? Would you guys do this again, but with like a more interesting topic that's like that you guys could talk about?
This topic was
I'd
pretty
do it.
interesting.
You do it again?
I would do it as many times as you want me to.
You know what? I talk about dreams. I love talking about dreams and sleep.
Would you
So,
okay?
we
Would
should
would
talk
you
about
would you
dreams and
would you
sleep.
hop onto a podcast if I talked about the unconscious and dreams?
I guess so.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
I guess I'd have to because I really like talking about dreams.
Jaslyn.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm down. I have nothing to do anyways.
Perfect.
Wasn't
You guys
someone
make
else
me very
supposed to be
happy.
Here?
I was gonna get Christian, who's a friend of mine.
Christian Solomon?
No,
No.
Oh.
Christian Alexander Davis. He's
I don't know who that is.
I'll show you guys a picture of him
I thought
actually.
you would know.
I'll show you a
Never
picture of
mind.
him, but like
I
You
don't
know.
Wait,
need
are
a
we
picture
stop
of him.
recording?
I haven't stopped yet, but like
Like, are you going to?
I will in just a second. Yeah, do you guys have anything, like, any closing remarks other than, like, you know, potentially doing this again? Aside from you, Boyan, who was, like, 100% like, oh, yeah, I'm going to down.
Should watch Wentworth.
Watch
Oh my
Wentworth.
God.
Jacqueline,
I would
Jason, anything you guys want to say?
I don't know what's a good ending remark. Peace out.
Jesus Christ, what are you in grade 7?
Yes.
Actually,
is
this
nice.
whole time, I've been conducting an unethical experiment. I'm
Oh,
going to
shoot.
stop
Oh,
the
damn.
recording so that I can continue the experiment. Thanks,
Oh my God.
thanks for joining me, guys.
Wow, thank you. Thanks for that.
So,
Bye.
Bye.